Honi Harawira.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill is being branded as a fresh start, but it's not really the fresh start that we know of. This one is supposed to be about an exciting new opportunity for young hoodlums to turn over a new leaf, start with a new clean slate and get a second chance. But I look through the bill as kind of like what Annette King was saying, suggests that some of the solutions aren't that fresh at all and some of them are already past their use-by date. A bit like Borstals, which were designed in 1924, specifically to prevent crime and reform young offenders. Unfortunately, 70% of Borstal kids got straight back into trouble again afterwards, and it took the state 80 years to wake up to the failing of that system. Nowadays, they call them youth residences or something equally as bland and meaningless, but just as useless in terms of turning kids around, and yet we still have them. But clearly there's a problem with youth offending, and just as clearly that problem is magnified in Maori society. We already know that half the Maori population is under 20. We know that nearly 50% of all teenage offenders are Maori, most of them young men just out of school. We know that Maori are already overrepresented in the criminal justice system. We also know that most of the kids targeted under this bill will be Maori. So we as Maori MPs particularly have to commit to taking whatever steps are required to reducing that reoffending and giving our kids a better shot at a decent future. And we need to make sure that we push for the kinds of programs, staffing and resources that will make a difference. We know, for example, that kura kaupapa works for Maori kids. We know that Maori kids respond to strong and positive leadership. We know that all kids develop well with good support from the whānau. We need to bring that same commitment to kaupapa Maori into this field as well. So it was good to hear the Minister confirm in the House yesterday, and I repeat it for the record, that the increased involvement of Maori providers is a priority. We made a commitment to broaden the range of providers. This will be done by consulting with both the Maori Party and Maori in general. We recognise that Maori have different needs and we will be implementing programs that will have a real effect. Those four statements recognise the importance of bringing Maori into the loop, but they are also a challenge to us Maori MPs and to all Maori providers who care about what happens with our kids to step up to the plate with programs that work to help turn our kids around. Like other Maori MPs, the Maori Party also wants to decrease Maori offending and victimisation, but we also support a restorative justice system. We want to change the nature of imprisonment in this country so that it actually reduces reoffending and enhances rehabilitation, neither of which happen at the moment. And in doing so, we aren't aiming to replace white bureaucrats with brown ones. We want to replace all bureaucrats with community people. And because I know people are going to ask, and because I know the media are anxious to know, and because I know the Liberals are hoping we weren't serious about it, I might as well come right out and tell you all that properly run, there's nothing wrong with boot camps. There is nothing inherently wrong with expecting kids to get out of bed early, have a wash, have 3 decent meals a day, get a decent education, do some hard work, and go to bed early. And if the truth be known, I know for a fact, as do most other Maori MPs in this House, although some of them might not want to admit it, that young Maori men actually flourish in a disciplined environment, including boot camps. Now, I know the jury is still out on whether these short, sharp shocks actually work, but most Maori are rightfully wary of what juries have to say anyway. And I know too that people have concerns about bullying and hazing and harassment and other practices which run counter to good learning and good behaviour. But I've got to say that I've seen for my own eyes how short and long stints in the armed forces have changed our kids, many of whom were on the edge of going bad. And I've seen kids that our community had written off as being completely lost, go away for their early stint in the army, the 12-week course, and they've come back completely changed people. I've got to say that nearly every single one of them that I've seen leave Kaitaia has come back a better person than when they went in. So forget the juries and never mind the advice of the Liberals. The truth is that good boot camps work. Yep, they're not all going to be good ones. You weed them out, but make sure that the good ones operate. And if they do, I tell you, I wouldn't have any problem with Māori kids going to them at all. Mr. Speaker, I also note that another proposal is to allow youth courts to issue parenting, education orders, mentoring orders, drug and alcohol treatment orders, as well as the old Home D bracelet for kids to keep some of these kids under more regular surveillance. Now, while each of these ideas ain't particularly cool, they are worth considering, but I also think there needs to be some very vigorous monitoring of the effectiveness of some of these proposals so that we don't end up pursuing a policy to the point of stupidity like previous governments did with Borstals and current governments do with kids' prisons. And so that we can very quickly dump any programs which have been brought in as a response to the blind panic generated by media hype and very little reality. And the Māori Party will be monitoring all of these new initiatives closely so we can pick out the good ideas and, quite frankly, dump the rest. Mr. Speaker, the Māori Party faces a big dilemma with this bill because we genuinely care about these kids of ours that get into trouble. And I wanted to talk about how Pita has taken kids in and how Tariana has taken kids in and Tūroa, and then I thought, and so have I. Then I realised it becomes part and parcel of our whole lifestyle. We genuinely care about what's happening with these kids of ours that get into trouble, some of it very serious. And we know that a lot of the proposals in this bill don't include decent research on the impacts on Māori families and the long-term effects on the Māori kids who will be chewed up by these initiatives. We know that this bill is more about immediate sanction than it is about long-term rehabilitation, and we know that this bill don't have all of the answers, not by a long shot. But we also know that the previous government didn't offer anything particularly positive for young Māori offenders, so this current lot can hardly do much worse. We also note that the previous government pretty much ignored the opinions of their own Māori MPs, while this time around the Māori Party at least has the opportunity to get something positive happening in some of these areas. And we've decided that rather than just sit on the outside and throw stones, we want to have a shot at trying to make something happen. We want to try because our kids deserve the best that we can give, and we want to try because we're not afraid to try. Yes, we can criticise initiatives that we don't like, and we intend to, but we've chosen to step through the door and at least try to involve people who can offer positive ideas for the rehabilitation of young Māori offenders. Mr. Speaker, we know that the challenge is bigger than just youth crime. We know that society must take seriously its obligations to eliminate poverty, improve living conditions for the poor, offer decent education to all of its citizens, create the environment for a strong economy, provide decent wages, and throw aside the yoke of racism that still burdens our society and limits our potential. But we will be supporting this bill to first reading to enable this debate to continue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Kia ora tātou.